Larissa, I'm on minimal.
What's that?
I'm just seeing a little picture of me here.
I'm not sure why.
Now I'm seeing two. I'm seeing the icon. Sorry, everybody. We're figuring this out for a minute.
That might just be what you're seeing tomorrow. You look good here on the webinar. I have it up in another screen.
Oh, because I see the icon. I don't see me full screen.
Let's try this. Hold on.
Oh, there we go. Yes, we're here.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy again to be here for the third time. Oh my gosh. I can't see your lovely faces again, but you can give me a wave. Give me a little emoji wave so I can. Oh, hi. You're all anonymous. I can't see or hear you, so thank you for waving. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm Tamar Rothenberg, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and this is our third webinar. I work with breast cancer thrivers in my private practice in West LA. And I want to thank CSLA for again and again and again, third time, inviting me here, as I'm always happy to share my nutrition message to make life a little bit better for cancer survivors. And I most recently presented a lunch and learn on the best diet for breast cancer at the main center. And it was about 2 months ago, but it really seems like it was a world away, right? I think we were even hugging. So I was also privileged to co-facilitate. We did a study called Coping with Cancer in the Kitchen at the main campus with Shannon La Cava, our own Chief Clinical Officer of CSC LA. And we have wonderful results from that study that should be published soon. Okay, so first I want to show you something very cute. My sister-in-law is very talented, and since I'm a dietitian, she made me a mask with veggies. Is this the cutest thing? And then my friend, who's also very talented, made me, you know how people used to wear like these jewelry to hold their glasses? Well, she made this for me to hold my mask. And look what's on it. Oh, there's a candy. So very cute. So I almost want to wear a mask now because it's so pretty. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna share my screen here and show you what we're talking about today. Um, so we are talking about nutrition for optimal immunity. Can we optimize our immunity with food? And then I'll show you a recipe or two. We'll bring it all together. We even have a cooking video with music. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. So quickly, just a disclaimer. This is not medical advice. It may not be applicable for you. It's just very general advice. And always check with your medical team before making any dietary changes. And make sure, if you can, to have an oncology dietitian as part of your team, because we know that people who do have work with oncology dietitians more successfully complete their treatment. So this webinar will be about an hour long. I'll be able to take your questions at the end. If you have questions, use the Q&A for that, because we're saving the chat for more administrative questions. So if, for example, you can't see or you can't hear, you would put that in the chat. And thank you to Larissa, who is here with me, monitoring that everything goes smoothly. As always, she's just doing great work. So this webinar is taped, and we'll be able to view it along with the others that I did in the CSC video library. The other two that I did were on using frozen foods, and we found out that some great benefits of frozen food. Okay, so let's see what we're going to cover here. So what we'll cover, we're going to talk about some nutrients that are present in foods that you probably even have in your pantry that support optimal immunity. And then I'll have my 4 food and nutrition guidelines for supporting immunity, specifically for cancer survivors. And finally, what I really want is for you to gain confidence in the preparation of foods that encourage optimal immunity. Now, before we get to the presentation, I want to define something important about immunity. So if you're in active cancer treatment, your focus is on getting enough nourishment any way you can. That is actually your immunity. And so you may be immunocompromised, and then proper nourishment and getting enough calories and a balance of nutrients will help you complete treatment successfully. So for example, there are no foods that help with neutropenia or low white blood cells. In that case, we follow food safety guidelines to avoid infection. Now, once you're past active treatment or in maintenance, that's when we can really start thinking about your immunity. And we're strictly talking about supporting immunity, not boosting. What's the difference? Well, when we boost immunity, that's when our immune system is in overdrive, it's hyperdrive. And it can mean actually autoimmune diseases like lupus. And even for the coronavirus, what we find is patients, their immune system is in, overdrive. There's a cytokine storm. So that's not what we want. We don't want to boost our immune system. You may be seeing that word kind of tossed around on social media. We do want to feed ourselves the foods that support, that hold our immunity. And that will help us stay strong to fight off infections and viruses. And finally, this doesn't mean that any food or nutrition will prevent COVID-19. Of course, you know that. I just want to throw that in. It's not about that. Okay. Okay, so when we talk about immunity, the first concept where we really want to talk about is something called resilience. Resilience is a two-way street. So if we have resilience, that helps our immunity system. And if our immune system is strong, that helps our resilience. And resilience really allows our body to be in a state of health, or it helps us to recover more quickly after exposure to things like viruses, bacteria, or toxins. And so our mental health and our immune system are mediated by something called our microbiome. So when we have a strong and resilient microbiome, then that helps our immune system and even our mental health. So our microbiome, and I'm sure you've heard the term by now, it's really a collection of different microbes and fungi and mucus and things like that that provide us with our immune system. Those are the microbes that are in our system, that is our immune system. And if I'm going to go to another slide here. The microbiome is really the kind of the seat of our immune system, because almost 98% of our immune system is in our gut. The gut lining is populated by a layer of mucus and microbes that protect toxins from entering our body and allow them to be excreted. So it's a very complex community. It's an eco community. And that influences both our normal physiology, the way our body works, and along with our susceptibility to disease. So that's why I'm talking about food here, because food is our immune system as well. That's our susceptibility to disease. So there's a couple of different factors involved in our immune system, and what you can see from our immune system is what is your front line defense. So obviously your skin And this is why we're talking about using masks during the coronavirus and things like that, because you don't want things entering the skin and the mucous membranes. And then you have natural biochemicals like your saliva, your mucus, your sweat, and your gastric acid. So the gastric acid in your stomach is so acidic that actually it can destroy pathogens. That's the reason why it's acidic. Of course, if it's overwhelmed, then you'll get, something like food poisoning because it can't kill enough of them. But that is the function really of gastric acid. So that's part of your immune system as well. So that's your frontline defense. Now, if we go further into our immune system, so what helps our frontline defense is also optimal nutrition. Optimal nutrition supports the functions of our immune cells and how they respond to these pathogens and even inflammation. So these are the nutrients I'm going to kind of focus on in this presentation that provide that optimal nutrition. There are more, but these are the main ones we'll talk about today. And these are, I'm sure you've heard of most of them. These are your vitamins A, C, D, and E. And then your B vitamins are particularly important, like folate, B6, B12, and then zinc. And this is actually playing a role even with the coronavirus. There are patients that are receiving zinc as part of their treatment. That doesn't mean you should take it right now. That's not what I'm saying. And then quercetin is, we'll go into that in detail, what that is. And then your omega-3 fatty acids. So, when we talk again about our immune system, we have to get back to basics. Do you have all your nutrition? Are you missing any nutrients? So that is really part of that well-functioning immune system. So as part of our frontline defense, that's what's called your innate immune response. So when your body is invaded by a pathogen, and that could be a virus or a bacteria or an injury, it has a response. That's what we call your innate immune response. That's your frontline defense. And then another part of your immune system, which is an exciting part of cancer treatments now, is called your adaptive immune response. So your adaptive immune cells actually have memory cells, so they have the ability to specifically recognize a pathogen, they remember it, and then they destroy that pathogen. So that's what we rely on for vaccines. That's what is the focus of cancer immunotherapy right now. And this immune system, this adaptive system, is also dependent on the innate immune system. So if you have a strong innate immune system, that primes the adaptive response and makes it stronger. So an example of this adaptive immune response would be if you got the measles vaccine and you had the measles, you were exposed to measles, your cells would remember that and would destroy it, and you wouldn't be exposed, you wouldn't get measles. But if you were exposed to chickenpox, it would not remember that if you didn't have the vaccine, so you would get chickenpox. So the adaptive response only recognizes specific pathogens that it remembers. So that's why, we're so hopeful that there'll be a COVID-19 vaccine very soon. Okay, so as part of our immune system, we talked about the microbiome. The majority of our immune cells are in our gut, and it's a specific tissue called gut. You don't have to get hung up on these terms, but it's a gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And this is in that mucosal layer that lines our intestines, and it communicates with the microbes. So that's part of the protection of our gut, that is a response in our immune system. So we want to keep those microbes happy. We want a gut bacteria family that's diverse, that multiplies, that's well fed, and nutrition can do that along with other things. So keep your gut bacteria happy. So when I talked about getting back to basics, I meant the micronutrient status. Your micronutrients, those are things you need small amounts of. Those are your vitamins and your minerals, but they're very powerful. So we want to make sure, first thing, do you have enough of those micronutrients? Are you missing, vitamin D, which many Americans are? We're finding again with the coronavirus that people who have adequate levels of vitamin D do better. If they're deficient, their immune system is not as strong. So we want to have these micronutrients from foods. And I'm not talking about, unless you need them, I'm not talking about supplements here. I'm going to focus on food mostly. And especially if you're in active treatment, you have to communicate with your medical team if you're taking any supplements. For sure, they can interact with a lot of the cancer treatments. So you want to have the adequate levels of the micronutrients, because also when you're exposed to a pathogen, your body is fighting and it's maybe losing some of those micronutrients, especially A, C, E, calcium, zinc, and iron. So as the immune system becomes increasingly active, it's using up more and more. So we always want to make sure we start at a good level. And of course, if you have blood drawn and lab tests, you'll know what if you're deficient. Okay, so I'm going to go into this in detail, but here are my 4 top nutrition sources for immune supporting foods. So top of the list, and I'm sure you've heard about this, is probiotics and prebiotics. Those are those yummy foods, fermented vegetables, and this we'll go into that in detail on the next slide. And then vitamin C. So you all know about oranges and citrus fruits, but did you know red peppers have even more vitamin C than oranges? So, you want to have a variety of vitamin C sources. And then zinc happens to be, again, very important with the coronavirus, that they are giving zinc. Now, zinc can only be taken for a short amount of time. So, again, it's not something I'm recommending right now, just to take as a precaution. And then vitamin D3, most Americans, as I said, are deficient, and it's very hard to get it from food. In that case, you'd probably need a supplement. So let's get into the details. Okay, so probiotics. You've all heard about that, right? Probiotics are live microorganisms that when you eat enough of them and in the right strain, they actually confer a health benefit to your gut, to the host. So every culture, it's so interesting because every culture has their own type of fermented food that turns out to be rich in health benefits. Now, originally it was done to preserve food. But now we're seeing it has really incredible benefits to our gut health. So if you want to put in the Q&A, what are some examples of fermented foods that you have from your culture? And I'll share them. So an example of probiotic rich foods here are things like kombucha. Again, this is something before you start, if you're in active treatment, you need to ask about some of these foods if you can have them, because especially unpasteurized foods are not recommended while you're in treatment. Kombucha, sauerkraut. So in my culture, sauerkraut and pickles are a big thing. Kimchi, kefir, pickled vegetables. When they talk about unpasteurized, They mean like you'll find it in the refrigerated section of your supermarket. That means the probiotics are still alive. They're not in the canned products. And then yogurt is a probiotic rich food. Let me just check. I see here. Natto, yes, Japan fermented beans. It turns out to be a great source of a vitamin K2. So that's a great source. Thank you. Okay, so you can keep sharing and I'll look for that. Now, prebiotics are very interesting because if you have your probiotics, right? Pro means like pro health. Your microbes, they need to eat something. What are they going to eat? How are they going to multiply? Well, they're going to eat if you feed them prebiotics. So prebiotics is the substrate. That's the food that also they have their own health benefits, but they also help the microbes survive. So prebiotic rich foods are, things that your grandparents probably ate a lot of and knew about. So that was like garlic and onions, leeks, asparagus, apples, the more starchier bananas, and organic apple cider vinegar. Now, apple cider vinegar should not ever be drunk straight. I suggest putting it in a dressing or cooking with it. I'm just going to check. Hungarians make a cold sour cream cabbage soup. Oh, that sounds really good. So, yes, and they also make borscht, which is incredibly helpful as well. So they have some really good um, probiotic recipes as well. Okay, so those are your prebiotics. Those are what you're feeding your microbes. And if, let's say, so I want to show you a quick recipe here that you can make very quickly, a mushroom broth. Now, we tend to talk about collagen broth sometimes in terms of immunity. But actually, for cancer survivors, we suggest a plant-based way of eating. So mushroom broth is incredibly rich in benefits. So you can, all you do, and this is a very nourishing broth too, you take a combination of any mushroom, it could be fresh or dried, some filtered water, garlic, carrots. Anytime you're cutting a vegetable up and you're going to throw away something, put it in the freezer, put the scraps in the freezer, and then you could use it for this broth. So any root veggies work here, herbs, spices, ginger. Ginger is very nourishing. And then you can use your apple cider vinegar and you just simmer it for a half hour as long as you want. And it's really a nice broth. I'm just checking if there's a question. Yes. Okay. So let's start with vitamin D. Vitamin D is antiviral, antimicrobial. It's a prohormone, meaning it actually is a hormone in your body that works together with other vitamins. And it's been shown to actually protect against upper respiratory infections and fight bacteria and viruses. Now, somebody had asked here, let me just check, what are some signs of vitamin deficiency? Well, a lot of us have a deficiency, but we're not in the danger zone. If you're just deficient, you may not really have signs. It can affect mood, by the way, but there's not generally strong signs unless you're in the severely deficient, and that if you're having regular lab tests, that would show up. Somebody asked about how much water for mushroom broth. It's not like a clear-cut recipe. You would use just maybe 3-4 cups because you want to make it a rich broth. Okay, so sources of vitamin D. Again, very hard to get from food. You get some from wild-caught fish like salmon. That's a fatty fish. There's something called, Costco has it now, it's called pastured eggs. They're a little more expensive than regular eggs, but they're very high in vitamin D because of the way the birds are being fed. It's it's not pasteurized. I mean, they are pasteurized, but it's specifically called pastured. And mushrooms. So I want to show you something here. I'm going to stop the share and show you this. Okay. I know this is going to be reversed, but I was waiting for this to come out. It finally came out. These are called, they're a company called Monterey Mushrooms, and they're extremely high in vitamin D. So I'm sorry you can't really see the label. I don't work for this company. I'm not getting any money out of them, but this is a great source of vitamin D right now. So if you just have like 2/3 cup of these mushrooms, they have 10 micrograms, which is half your day's value of vitamin D. So a 2/3 cup slice is just like 3, 4 mushrooms. And if you cook them, they retain their vitamin D. So this is a great way to get more vitamin D. It's a fortified food, just like milk is, and soy milk is, fortified with vitamin D and calcium. Well, now they figured out how to do it with mushrooms. It happens to be very safe. All they do, and this is a very interesting process, is they expose it to UV light, and it soaks up, the mushrooms actually soak up the vitamin D. Now, I haven't done it myself. I heard if you leave mushrooms in the sun for a couple of days, it may do the same. But there's no way to measure how much vitamin D you're doing yourself. So this is actually tested and measured that it contains 50% of your day's vitamin D. So I thought that's a really nice way to do it. I'm just going to check the question. Sorry. Okay, let me see. I want to see if there's any questions. Okay, where did I find these mushrooms? Yes. I actually found them at Sprouts, and they happen to be less expensive than the organic mushrooms. So it's a nice choice. Besides dressings, how else can you take apple cider vinegar? That's the way I recommend it. All I'm saying is you have to mix it with something else. I would never tell you to drink apple cider vinegar straight. You can actually burn your esophagus, because I've seen this on the internet, these suggestions, and it's not a good way to do it. You can cook with it. There's, other things. Okay, sorry, there's a question about vitamin D. Okay, I don't know about how effective is vitamin D supplements. They're very effective. So if you need the supplement, you have to take it. They're also in drops form. If you need them in case you're having some digestive issues, sometimes in the liquid form, they're a little better. Okay. All right, so let me get back. Thank you for your questions. Let me get back to vitamin D. So again, vitamin D, you probably will need a supplement. Okay, so vitamin C, easy to find. Every fruit, almost every fruit has vitamin C, but they're most concentrated in things like, of course, citrus, bell peppers, every color. The color of the bell pepper tells you how strong the antioxidants are, which are anti-cancer, nutrients. Berries, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, leafy greens, and then a whole food vitamin C. The active part is called acerola cherry. You can find supplements also that have that, but if you want to take them, not necessary for the most part. Most of us are getting enough vitamin C, but if you want more, eat more fruit, and it's a great way to get other sources of vitamins. Okay, so let's move on to zinc. So zinc is very powerful. It's an antioxidant, and it actually helps to activate certain immune cells. So that's why we want to make sure we're getting enough zinc. And I'm talking about through food, not supplements. Seafood has specific seafood. And then surprisingly, pumpkin seeds, they're a great source. Throw them in your salad. of zinc, and they also have a lot of magnesium, which is great for blood pressure. And then yogurt, dairy products have zinc, and then other nuts like cashews. And then most beans have a high amount of zinc, but chickpeas are particularly high. So if you like hummus, keep eating your hummus. Those are great sources. These are all great sources for zinc. So, throw a little pumpkin seeds or cashew nuts in every day, have a little bit of that. And then I work with this nonprofit, American Institute for Cancer Research. They have if you want to go to their website, they have great ideas for other recipes for cancer survivors. And this is Karen Collins, who's a wonderful dietitian, and she talks about here beans. So why does she stock up on beans? Obviously for zinc, but for fiber and other minerals and nutrients. So she always has an assortment. She says she can make a healthy meal in 15 minutes. So for example, dry lentils, they cook in 15 minutes. And then you can make a lot of international cuisines using different types of beans. They're economical. And she says they leave room in my grocery budget for plenty of interesting vegetables and fruits. So they are a key element in strategies for reaching the American Institute Cancer Research recommendations for dietary fiber. So by eating beans, again, you're strengthening your gut immune system. You're getting that fiber. Fiber is a fantastic, it's not a nutrient, but it's a way of getting out excess cholesterol and things that we don't want in our body. So that I just thought that was a nice quote that she gave me on beans. Okay, so this is an interesting molecule. It's called quercetin. And I found out that quercetin actually works with zinc. It helps move zinc into the immune cells. So it's just one more nutrient that you want to focus on. It's only found in plants. Also has been shown to reduce the incidence and severity of upper respiratory tract infection symptoms, and especially potent when you combine it with vitamin C. So some of these food sources, I'm sure they're in your kitchen: apples, tomatoes, seeds and nuts, your broccoli, your cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, incredibly nutritious vegetables, capers. If you know about capers, they're a vegetable, they're a blossom, and they seem to have the highest concentration of quercetin. So again, cook with them, add them to salads. Grapes, onions, and shallots, oranges, honey, red onions, and black tea. So we tend to focus on green tea, which is a wonderful drink, but so is black tea. It has a lot of these things called flavonoids, which are especially important for cancer prevention. So just talking more a little about black and green tea, you want to include them as well. They're both very powerful nutrients, but the only difference is they're processed differently. So green tea is cooked is quicker because it's just quickly steamed. So they do retain a little more of these flavonoids. But black tea, all the studies are showing that they're incredibly important too. So include both or choose whatever you like. And finally, omega-3s. Omega-3s, as you know, this is a fatty acid that's found in the fatty fish, like salmon. So you want to have a couple of servings a week of this. Now, for people who are vegans or vegetarians, if they don't eat fish and they may be concerned about getting enough omega-3s and EPA and DHA, you can find a good amount in chia seeds, ground flax seeds, hemp seeds, and walnuts, or if you're a vegan, you may need to take a supplement. Now, fish, they're not born with these EPA and DHA molecules. They actually eat moss, which is how they get their nutrients, and then we eat the fish and we get that EPA, DHA. So it's not like That's the only source of those nutrients. You can also get them through supplements that are derived from moss. In case, this is just in case if you don't feel like, or you don't like fish, or you don't eat enough fish. Okay, so let's go on. Ginger, I'm sure you've heard of. It's also antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral properties. It's a wonderful thing to add into your dishes. What I find really works is you can buy a big bulb of it, a big root, and then you peel it and stick it in the freezer. And when you want to use it, you don't even have to wait for it to frost, you just grate it. And so you always have this ginger root available. You can steep it in almond milk and add some spices. You can simmer it to make tea, add it to smoothies. It helps with digestion, with tummy troubles, and things like that. So it's a nice thing to add during your day. Okay. Okay, so garlic. Okay, so again, your grandparents knew what they were doing. They had a lot of garlic. It also can help with respiratory infections. Contains something called allicin and allicin. These are antimicrobial, help destroy bacteria. So a trick to garlic and with some other foods is to cut it and let it sit for 10-15 minutes, and actually releases even more of its beneficial compounds. So go do something else, start sauteing something and go back to your garlic, let it sit for 10-15 minutes, and you'll get an extra gut friendly boost from that. Okay, any questions here? Okay, will this slideshow be available to view, download? Yes, it will. Cancer Support Community is recording this and it will be on their website. Okay, finally, fresh organic herbs. These are like micro bombs of nutrients, right? So they're just concentrated forms of nutrients, fresh or dried. And sometimes dried has even more of the antioxidants because your fresh herbs are delicious, but sometimes they've been sitting around for a while and exposed to oxygen, they lose some of those antioxidants. So use things like thyme, oregano, lemon balm, sage, or really anything you like. And I'm talking about not in supplement form again, but using them in foods. You can make your dishes delicious just by adding in some of these herbs. Okay. Okay, so the question about the ginger root tea. What if you put it in boiling water? Well, as I understand it, if you boil it for under 15 minutes, you're retaining all the nutrients in ginger. So I think you're okay, even if you're boiling it. Could pastured eggs be pasture raised? Yes, I think that's correct. They are pasture raised, so they're higher in vitamin D. What type of garlic do you recommend? Any garlic. Any garlic you like. They all have those same properties. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as part of our immune system, nutrition is one part of it, right? It's not everything. Hydration, making sure you're drinking enough, being well hydrated, that really does help your immune system, makes your cells happy. And then sleep. So I know sleep's an issue with everything that's going on lately, the pandemic and the protests, and it's very hard. But try to get a better sleep, at least 7 to 9 quality hours per night. And so we recommend turning off all electronics an hour or two before because those lights do disrupt your sleep. And then deep breathing. I know Cancer Support Community has some wonderful exercise classes that involve deep breathing, restorative yoga, all kinds of things. It really does help the body with its hormones, and especially during this time of stress. It helps the digestive system as well because it encourages blood flow. And then physical activity, any way you can move. So we used to give like a specific prescription. You have to move a certain amount. You know, really, now we find that any movement works. So a short walk or just working around the house, all those things will help your immune system, whatever you can do. It actually alters the immune cell populations in your bloodstream. So, for example, if you're working out, within 20 minutes, your blood is filtered. It's an amazing process. So, wherever you're at right now, you can aim for whatever movement that you can do right now and make it enjoyable. Find something that you love to do. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at the questions again. I have heard to watch the amount of ginger used in tea or food because of its properties. You know, it's more a question of digestion issues, like if it bothers your digestion. So you want to keep it within normal amounts, you know, for tea. Um, you know, maybe if you're cooking with it. You know, they sell the frozen cubes now. So one cube, I think, is a teaspoon, and that's kind of like a serving of ginger. So that would be something to aim for. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. So what does your immune supporting plate look like? All the things we talked about, right? Water, number one. Your supplements might be vitamin D. You could add probiotics and your mushroom broth. Some healthy fats like olive oil. All those vegetables we talked about, they make them delicious. Whole grains, seeds, and nuts. Don't forget about seeds and nuts. I think some people are afraid to eat them. They think they're so high calorie. But we're talking about small portions a couple of times a week. They really add so much nutrition. And then protein. Your protein, you can get enough if you're vegetarian. You can get it through beans. You can get it through nuts and seeds. So don't worry about getting enough protein. If you're in active treatment, yes, you do need more, and you would work with your medical team on that. And then finally, fermented and pickled vegetables. So again, include them, the ones that you enjoy from your culture. Okay, so I just want to show you one recipe here. So this is a sheet pan butternut squash frittata. And I will show you options for modifying it. We have I'll go over the recipe and then we'll do the video. This takes about 20 minutes to cook and then, you know, maybe 15, 20 minutes for prep time. It says here 30 minutes, but I'll show you shortcuts for that. So you would take a cup of butternut squash. Now, you can buy it now frozen where it's cut and cooked already, so that will have your prep time right there. 4 scallions, a half cup of goat cheese. I'll show you if you don't want cheese. I'll show you how to modify that. And then 6 eggs, but 2 of them are egg whites, 2 roasted peppers jarred, a cup of kale, shredded. You want it shredded because it gets a little chewy, and then salt and pepper. So you would first cook your butternut squash in a 400-degree oven. Now again, if you're buying that frozen squash, you can bypass this step, and you would go right to composing your frittata. You would preheat your oven to 350. I suggest using a sheet pan with parchment paper because that makes for very easy cleanup. And then spray the parchment paper as well with olive oil or just drizzle some olive oil. You would space out your veggies, your squash, peppers, scallions, kale, and your goat cheese. And then you would add your whisked eggs. You would pour it and coat it. And then you just bake until the eggs are set, about 20 minutes. Now, this is a wonderful protein option. It's easy. You can use it for breakfast, lunch, or as a snack. But I want to give you a few modifications because a recipe is just a guide, right? You want to make it your own. So let's say you wanted to make this with an Asian flair, or you wanted this vegan. It's actually very easy to do. You would omit the cheese and the eggs, and you would puree a package of silken tofu. You want the silken because that's the very soft one. You would drain the tofu first for about 15 minutes, and then you would puree it with 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. So, nutritional yeast actually gives you those B vitamins we were talking about, but they also add a bit of a savory taste instead of the cheese. And then you would add, let's say, a teaspoon or so of turmeric. So, turmeric is an anti inflammatory, and that would give you the color of the eggs as well. And they also have anti cancer nutrients. So, you would puree that until smooth and use that instead of eggs. And then let's say you wanted to switch up the kale for something that's of African heritage. So you could use collards, which are very easy to find now, and you would just shred that instead. If you wanted to make this Mediterranean, if you wanted to make it a little spicy, you could add a harissa paste. If you wanted to add it to make it more Mexican, you would sub the butternut squash for yams, or cassava, which is yucca, or yucca is the pronunciation. So make it your own, mix it up. This is not something that you have to do a certain way. So always add your own take on it. Okay, so I'm going to now show you whoops, let me go back to the video. I'm just going to check, are there any questions? For pickled vegetables, are cornichons in a jar good? They can be if they're refrigerated. So if they're the refrigerated kind, yes, so they have the probiotics, and I happen to love them. They're really very good. Okay, so let me show you now the video of the recipe. Let me see where it is. I think this might be it. Nope. Let's see what this is. Bear with me, I'm just looking for it. Okay. Okay, it should be here. Okay, here it is. So what'd you think? Isn't it great when someone else cooks for you? that's, that's what I feel like when I see a video. So I hope that was good. Did you get a good idea of how to make it? And do you think it's something you would make or, modify, make it with tofu, all kinds of things you could do? Okay. Let me know if you want to see it again because somebody said it was choppy, but okay. All right, so let me see if there's questions here. Looks good. Thanks for sharing. Thank you so much. I never heard of putting olive oil on parchment paper rather than putting it on what is being roasted. So basically, you don't want it to stick to the paper. That's all. Sometimes it depends on what you're cooking. You don't always need to do that. But when I cook things like tempeh or tofu, it does stick to the parchment paper. So you can, just add a bit of oil for that. So that's the only reason for that. Enjoyed. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed that recipe. All right, so let's go back to, I want to again show you the 4 categories for the immune supporting foods. Let me go back here just to go over. Okay, so your prebiotics and probiotics, those are great food sources. All your fermented vegetables, choose the ones that you enjoy from your culture. Your vitamin C, right? All your citrus. Have a couple of servings a day and you'll be set. And then zinc. So all your beans can be used completely instead of meat. They're a great protein source. Seeds are a great part of your nutritional profile. Dark chocolate, I forgot to say, dark chocolate has more zinc than other types of chocolate, so enjoy your chocolate. And then all your nuts, cashews, almonds, pine nuts. And then finally, vitamin D3, either fish or supplements, or the mushrooms that you can now enjoy that are high in vitamin D. And then I'll show you the plate once more. And then I'll take your questions after this. Okay, so here's your immune supporting plate. And you want most of the plate to be veggies and some fruits. So your healthy fats, right? Your olive oil, avocado oil is a great oil if you're cooking at high heat. Your vegetables, all that good veggies, fruits, water, of course, whole grains, seeds, and nuts. Always have some protein, and that could be either for vegetarian or eggs or, things like chicken, yogurt, and then fermented and pickled vegetables and your vitamin D, probiotics, omega-3s, and your mushroom broth for extra nourishment. I did see a question about, do you add the silken tofu to the baked sweet potatoes or roasted butternut squash instead of goat cheese? Okay, so I would suggest you puree the silken tofu instead of the eggs, right? So you would make the recipe exactly the same, except instead of eggs, you're pouring the silken tofu pureed over your vegetables. You would still have your baked sweet potatoes or your roasted butternut squash. And you could choose to use cheese or not. Okay, anything to avoid for inflammation? Um, there, okay, well, that's a whole nother topic, which I would love to address. But inflammation is a big topic. So when we talk about chronic inflammation, that's a disease state. So that's mostly foods that are not fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. So anything apart from that, if I missed anything, is going to possibly induce a little more inflammation state. It's a question of how much. You know, if the majority of your plate is fruits and veggies and whole grains, you're doing great. So you don't have to worry about specific foods. Tomatoes are not inflammation inducing. I think that's a myth from way back. But of course, if you have sensitivity or allergies, that's a whole nother topic that has nothing to do with inflammation. Okay, so vitamin C supplements. So I can't recommend you. I don't know you. In general, we don't really need them. If you're eating enough fruits and vegetables, you're getting way more vitamin C than you need. Okay. Okay. So we have like I'm just going to show you the last thing. If you want to contact me, my name is Tamar Rothenberg again. You can go to my website. This is how I feel free to contact me for, I would love to hear from you. This is my email, nutrition nom nom. So nutrition nom nom. Nom nom is the Sesame Street character that loves cookies. Or on Instagram, I am at breastcancer.nutritionist. On Facebook, you can just search my name, Tamar Rothenberg, RD. And then if you want, I have sorry, let me find this. I have a blog for breast cancer survivors, but you can also download for free a list of plant-based kitchen essentials to a shopping list by clicking here, and then you'll be subscribed. You can choose to unsubscribe at any time as well. So feel free to go to the website for that. Okay, let me just check if there's any more questions. Oh, there's something in here. Are there other recipes? Yes, but I ran out of time. So maybe there'll be another webinar and I'll include a little more recipes. So I'm sorry. There's one more question about the veggies in the soup. Do you eat the veggies in the soup or toss them and just have the broth? It's your choice. Some people don't like the mushy vegetables, but they're perfectly good to eat. So leave them or strain them out if you don't like them. Okay. Any final questions? It's 1:59, so I don't want to take up more of your time. Okay. I think there's one more here. Thank you. Well, thank you, and I hope to see you in real life on campus. And thank you so much. I hope you will have some immune supporting foods today and stay healthy and be well. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thanks. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying hello, and hope to see you in person soon. Stay well. Bye-bye, everyone. Just checking here. Thank you. Thank you for your thank yous. Okay.